Ahead, Humera.
Matt, what about the merits of the arrest warrant? You pushed back on the jurisdiction and the process. Does the United States, is it able to challenge the substance of the arrest warrant? I mean, some of the things that the prosecutor says, evidence his office collected showed Israel has systematically deprived civilians of objects indispensable to human survival, including restricting food, water, medicine, and energy. Is the State Department able to challenge the arrest warrant application on those bases?
I'm not going to speak to all the details of the prosecutor's arrest warrant because there will be a process for getting into that at the ICC, and people will be able to challenge that. But I'll say we have spoken to the provision of humanitarian assistance, for example, recently when we issued the report on NSM 20, where we laid out where we have seen Israel not taking all the steps that we thought they ought to take, but we saw an improvement and a turnaround and an increase in the ability to get humanitarian assistance in.
But I don't understand why you can't address this right now, because when...
So I'm not a lawyer in court going point by point by his arrest warrant.
When South Africa brought the case in ICJ, U.S. called it meritless. And right now, can you call the substance of the arrest warrant applications meritless?
So I will say we believe it is fully unfounded, should not have been brought. Now, with respect to the underlying allegations, we'll have time to look at that. This is an arrest warrant that was issued today. We'll have the time to look at it, to digest it, and perhaps issue a more complete response. But as I said, we shouldn't be where we are today because there are processes ongoing to look at some of these questions that we think should have been allowed to play out. And as I said, when you look at the fact that the prosecutor was scheduled to go to Israel and his staff was scheduled to go there today, we were puzzled to understand why he would yank those trips and go on television to make an announcement, something that also is very strange. As Matt pointed out, I used to work at DOJ. It's not usually how prosecutors announce their.
I did not say that it was strange that he went on TV.
You pointed out I used to work at DOJ. Is what I was referring to. It's a strange thing for a prosecutor to make an initial arrest announcement on television, not in a formal document. So we look at all these circumstances and have real concerns about it.
Right. In terms of accountability, though.
Sorry to put words in your mouth. I think it was the part that I meant I was attesting to was what followed.
Not Eric Holder never did a TV interview.
Not to announce an arrest warrant before we had issued any actual charging documents. No.
So you're just angry at angry at the process that he used.
I will say the process itself calls into question the underlying substance.
Right. In terms of accountability, though, you talk about the fact that Israel has open investigations. So what kind of timeline did Israel provide you to conclude those investigations?
So we have made clear to Israel that those investigations ought to proceed expeditiously, and they ought to reach conclusions as soon as possible.
And have they provided you a timeline?
I'm not going to speak to our internal discussions or speak for the Israeli government, but it is very difficult always to put a timeline on any kind of investigation, certainly on a criminal investigation, and I wouldn't want to do that on behalf of the foreign government, other than to say our expectation on behalf of the United States is that they should proceed and finish as soon as possible, but not at the expense of thoroughness. And that is always the balance when you look at investigation, is expediency versus thoroughness. You want to be quick, but you want to be thorough. That's more important.
And my final one is, does the ICC arrest warrant, I understand you challenge it from a jurisdiction and process point of view, but I suspect the U.S. still recognizes the ICC, right?
We do.
Right. Yeah. So the fact that the prosecutor has applied for an arrest warrant and talking about crimes against humanity, does that give the State Department a pause or give you second thoughts about the conclusions of the NSM report? I mean, you have raised certain concerns there, but then you did find Israel's assurances credible. Is that something that would make you rethink that conclusion?
No. If we saw new evidence, we would always look at that and be willing to, we're always willing to look at our assessments if they are changed by new evidence that comes in the door. But we had conducted a thorough review in writing that report, and there's nothing that we saw in the charges announced today that changes our fundamental conclusions.